Hello again and welcome to another episode of the Franchise Everything podcast, where we talk about everything and anything franchising. Today we're joined again by Greg Nathan, renowned franchise relationship psychologist, best-selling author, all that sort of stuff.
Blah,
Greg,
blah, yeah.
there you go.
Great to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for joining us again. And we're going to be talking about franchise recruitment best practice, which is it's a topic near and dear to both of our hearts, obviously, and it's a huge topic in franchising because every franchisor wants to grow.
Yeah.
So let's just kick it off there. What's happening at the moment as you see it, or what's your thoughts on franchise recruitment best practice, Greg?
So look, there's always been this tension. This is the elephant in the room about selling and selection. And I don't think anyone's really nailed it.
This is I don't sell franchises, I grant franchises.
Them, yes.
Yeah, I can't stand
that's right.
That sort of terminology.
Yeah, but look, there is an element of marketing and sales and coaching. We can get to the competencies of a good recruiter in a minute, because they do need a little bit of all these competencies. But most importantly, we've got to understand that you're entering into a relationship that lasts for, on average, 7 years.
And it's a unique relationship.
Yeah, it's a unique relationship. It's not like selling a car or something and then you move on to the next person. You have to live with this person, work with this person. And so responsible franchisors put a lot of thought and effort into the processes required to ensure that there are no surprises later on with the franchisees they're bringing into their networks.
Do you think there's enough doing that, or do you think that the selling part is just too enticing?
Yeah. Look, different cultures in different countries have slightly different approaches.
Because you've got a real international exposure.
Yeah. Look, in North America, it's all about the sales, if we're honest, and they're very good at it. I mean, they have very sophisticated selling methods and processes. When it comes to the selection side of things, there's not a lot there. Some people might use a profile here or there. In Australia, I think we're a little bit more holistic in our approach to recruitment.
See, that's funny. I thought the US would have been well and truly advanced in selection and profiling and that sort of stuff. You're saying it's much more of a sales.
It's more sales. It's more sales.
Getting the deals done, getting the stores open.
Yeah, getting the deals done. And you've got these franchise sales organizations now, and their job is just to hit the numbers and grow and help the franchisor. So the franchisor will outsource to them to sign up as many deals as possible. And we've seen some absolute disasters where they may sell 200 territories, using scarcity sort of techniques about, if you don't sign up now, you'll miss out on this territory. And it brings in a lot of cash up front, but then you've got to deliver on the promises, and you can have a lot of prospective franchisees who haven't even opened a store yet.
So then it becomes an operational issue, doesn't it, more than anything?
Well, if you're bringing in people just to hit your numbers and those people aren't properly prepared, yes, it can lead to operational issues later on.
So what are you seeing as far as, let's go for the Australian perspective then, in the market that we're in? What are you seeing as the key competencies of a good franchise recruitment person rather than a salesperson?
Well, look, we've got to accept there is a marketing element here, and I think you're excellent at this, Glenn, in terms of being able to communicate to prospective franchisees what are the benefits of belonging to this network, what's the nature of the work and so on. And obviously there's a courting process where you put your best foot forward in explaining the benefits and so on. There is a sales component of following up when people make inquiries. You need to have sales disciplines, a CRM, follow up on calls in a disciplined way. There's a certain amount of coaching involved where you need to be able to build trust and have a conversation with a prospective franchisee about their goals and is this the right fit for them. And in the coaching conversation, probably listening 80% of the time, talking 20% of the time. A lot of recruiters are just trying to sell too much.
Sell their benefits.
Then there's a legal component. You really need to understand your legal obligations of not misrepresenting anything and so on. There's a HR competency involved in terms of how to do interviews, how to maybe fill out some profiling tools, and then you've got to understand the operations of the business as well, and how long does it take to ramp up, what sort of training's involved, what's it like in the day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
So a recruiter needs a well-rounded kit of competencies.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
It is a tough job. And I talk to a lot of franchise recruitment people at all different times around messaging and how they articulate their message to the marketplace.
Yeah,
And it can be a real challenge to try and find those things that are the right messages to attract the right people.
Mm.
So do you think there's enough training it? Do you think there's enough?
No. And I've just put together an online course, which we're just about to release, but just taking them through those competencies, a little bit of a self-assessment and so on. But a lot of people are learning on the job.
Yeah,
I find the best recruiters actually come from operations because they've got that understanding of what it's like to be in the business and probably a bit more empathy. And they take a more responsible approach, and then they can learn the skills about how to assess and what are the right questions to ask somebody.
So what role are you seeing technology in recruitment best practice at the moment? Are you seeing a lot of hands-off technology? I mean, here's what I think, because there's a school of thought that there's a bunch of people who think let the prospect do all the work to try and follow up and everything. And then there's the other school of thought that people are on the phone and chasing people up and that sort of stuff. And no doubt technology is somewhere in between all of this, enabling all of this. What are you seeing out there of people using technology as far as best practice goes?
Yeah, look, I think there's a balance. Your first point about who should be doing the work, the prospect or the prospective franchisee needs to fill out some forms and so on. And I can talk a little bit about the technology we use in a moment. So you need the prospect to be doing that, but you also need to be doing a bit of heavy lifting as the recruiter in calling them, having the conversations, and having a very detailed checklist. We call it a final check on how do you assess whether someone's ready to sign the agreement and move into training.
Yeah. And it's a hard balance, that, isn't it? Because there's from the selling recruitment person doesn't want to spend so much time on the phone chasing people because no one wants to be called these days, do they? Yeah. Everyone wants to do stuff at hands off. So it's actually a bit of a balance. How do you, as a recruitment type of person, especially with your technology and the systems that you've got in place there, how do you find that balance between the two? Well,
obviously you've got to meet the person where they're at, and not everybody doesn't want to be called. Some people are happy to take the phone call.
Maybe I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah, but I think if you've got a good business opportunity that you're selling,
the heart of it,
and you've explained to people the benefits of that and they want to find out more about it, then it is a partnership where I'm going to explain to you how the business works. I need you to work with me. And there'll be no pushing or heavy selling. You can step out of the process at any time, but my job is to help prepare you for success if you decide to go ahead.
Okay, so that's sort of that process of inquiry and talking the person through. Say that person's at that spot now. What are you seeing as best practice for assessing that person, profiling them to see if they're a good fit?
You need obviously a good, traditionally we used to send out the paper and pencil application forms. This is all done online now. A lot of CRMs do this. We've developed a product. We have a product called Franchise Lab. It's got 3 modules, and the first module is called an information request. It's like a best practice application form, but it asks, we call it the bio data, the background on the person, everything you need to know about that person that's relevant for them running a business. And that would include, do they run another business at the moment? Have they run other businesses? How is their health? What's their family situation? Obviously you need to know about their financial situation and other things. So it covers that very carefully, and it raises some red flags if there's something you need to investigate further with the candidate. Then it's helpful to get some sort of self-assessment from the candidate. So we call it a self-assessment. It measures 16 attributes that we've found through a lot of research matter. And so then it's not a personality profile like a Myers-Briggs or something like that. It's something that we've created from the ground up with a lot of research backed by universities that partnered with us to do that initial research. And so we look at comfort with technology, which is a big issue today. Someone's proactivity is their philosophy of life. If it is to be, it is up to me, because we know proactive people make better business owners. How does their family feel about the business? So we measure this sort of stuff, as well as a little bit of personality like extroversion and optimism and things that we know also help in terms of business.
So are these things tailored and customized for a franchise brand, or are they just off the shelf? Does it make any difference?
Yeah. We've found that these attributes are generic across all small businesses, and which is really fantastic because it means that we don't have to rebuild a new tool for every client. And we've benchmarked against an existing cohort of franchisees. So prospective franchisees are being compared against around 2,500 existing franchisees from a range of networks. But we can, if there's enough franchisees in a group, we could do a study, but there's a bit of a myth about you can do a study and pick your best performers and match them against that. It's a little bit of smoke and mirrors that you need around about 100 people to make that legitimate as a study. You can't do it on 10 or 20 people.
So do you find a lot of brands doing that, trying to, I mean, is there enough benchmarking happening with the success factors? I mean, how generic are the success factors? Does it matter? Do the type
They're
of brand?
pretty generic.
And mobile, QSR.
You've seen this and I've seen this, that you can take a successful small business owner in one brand and they're a high achiever. They can move to another brand. They will be a high achiever in that other brand. Managing people, managing finances, customer focus, being able to sell, having good energy. These are generic qualities of small business operators, providing they want to work in that industry.
Yeah. So what are you seeing then as the key factors in success of franchise recruitment? So if we can sort of sum them up a little bit, because I mean, anyone listening to this needs to sort of zero in on those areas that they need to look at in their own business, for example. What do you say?
Well, you first got to say, what is success? And there's a lot of confusion around this. To me, a successful franchisee does three things. They run a profitable business, so they've got to know how to drive sales and control costs. They've got to deliver the customer experience in an exceptional way. So they've got to have that passion for customer service and be able to lead their team and train their team in how to deliver that. And they've also got to be able to fit into a franchise network and do things that they may not always want to do. So I call it being a good franchisee citizen. So we call it constructive participation. So you're looking for people who are going to run a profitable business, deliver a great experience for the customer, and participate constructively in the franchise network. And then the next thing is, well, what are the attributes needed to deliver on those? And they're the 16 that I've talked about that we measure in the Franchise Lab. And then you've got to have a way of how do you assess and measure these things and rate them. So we have some tools in there where the franchisor team, you can have the recruitment manager and the operations manager working in partnership to say, does this candidate stack up to a reasonable level? No one's perfect on these competencies, and any areas where they're a little bit short, can we coach them and develop them on these things? So that's a responsible approach.
That's a decision making whether they're in or whether they're suitable for the franchise or not.
Yeah, and that's where the franchisor's got to put in a little bit of effort to do a structured interview with a structured rating scale where they can objectively rate someone and to say, are they ready yet or not ready? And one of the attributes is even understanding what it means to be a franchisee. And there's some questions you can ask the candidate to say, are they ready? And if they're not, you can do a bit more education on that.
Okay. That's interesting. And before we finish up, I just want to mention something that I mentioned to you before we even got on camera here was about a franchisor telling me recently that it's very hard to get into their system and they are like a guardian at the gate for that system. And you had a very interesting observation on that type of stuff with their opinion and the way they sit on that. Can you just talk through that about how that can be problematic?
Yeah. So you've got founders of organisations that they may have 30 to 100 franchises, and the founders might still be very much involved, and the new franchisees coming in build this relationship with the founders. The founder's not always going to be there. So what are you going to do when the founder's not there? What are the criteria? Who's going to decide, is this person the right vibe, to come in? So you need some objective criteria to say whoever's running the organisation, the criteria are still consistent. And that's why I think, look, it's fine to sit down with the prospective franchisee and have a coffee or a meal and say, do I feel comfortable with this person?
But it's not enough, is it?
It's not enough because your interests and your personality might fit with some people, but other people who may not be your cup of tea, so to speak, might still be really good franchisees, still be able to run a profitable business, deliver a great customer experience, and constructively participate in the network. But they just do it in a slightly different way.
Excellent. I think we've covered a lot there on franchise recruitment best practice, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us, mate. And that's it for another one of the Franchise Everything podcast. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you do, please like, share, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. And I hope you got a lot out of this one, and we'll catch you in the next one soon.